All right, we should be live for another day, a new week. So much to cover. So much to cover. Like tons. Fucking everything has happened in the past 48 hours. Bad, very, very bad, evil stuff has happened in the past 48 hours. I just news out of left field as well. Things that nobody expected. And things that should have never happened, obviously. We're gonna waste no time here getting into... First off, Rob Reiner and his wife found dead. And apparently, on top of that, the FBI announces arrests in a foiled, I would assume, California New Year's Eve terror plot. I think that's what CA is. California. So, I'm not entirely sure what's going on.
Very early stages of this investigation, but again, Chief's prepared to answer any questions and give you a brief update. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Captain Bland. As he said, the information at this stage is still limited, but I'll share what we can. First of all, our hearts go out to the family and friends of the Reiners, a tragic incident. Yesterday at December 14th, about 3:40 in the afternoon, LAPD responded to a residence, the residence of Rob and Michelle Reiner, located in West Los Angeles Division. At that location, they found two deceased adults, a male and a female. Through the night, working with the coroner's office, they were able to identify them definitively as Rob and Michelle Reiner. We have our Robbery Homicide Division handling the investigation. They worked throughout the night on this case and were able to take into custody Nick Reiner, a suspect in this case. He was subsequently booked for murder and is being held on $4 million bail. Pretty much that's what I can share at this point, but again, a very, very tragic incident.
Can you talk about, I know Deputy Hamilton talked about the search warrant and how important that was with the inside. Can you talk about where that played a role in this and what you guys needed in order to enact that?
Yeah, you know, we use search warrants to be able to further our investigation, as you know, on all of these cases. I wouldn't be in a position to talk specifically about what the object of the search warrant was, but it's a critical piece of our investigations to be able to ensure down the road a prosecution. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.
So the very latest on two different breaking news stories. I first want to start with the main reason why the FBI and Los Angeles County officials were gathered talking about the arrests of 4 individuals in a foiled California New Year's Eve terror plot. And they were sharing some more information about this. Federal authorities saying that they disrupted a credible terrorist threat over the weekend, arresting 4 alleged members of a radical pro-Palestinian extremist group accused of planning coordinated New Year's Eve bombings in Los Angeles, saying that they plan to target 5 separate locations across the area. Now
What an absolute nightmare right now. Shit is literally kicking off on all levels. Just adjust my microphone there, but yeah, this is getting crazy, and it's getting crazy quickly. We just saw what happened in Australia. They've just foiled a California New Year's Eve terror plot. This is getting out of hand.
We're hearing from authorities, and they indicated that while there were 5 separate locations, they will not be identifying those specific locations. The FBI telling Fox News Digital that the members are self-identified as part of a radical offshoot of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, an extremist group motivated by pro-Palestinian, anti-law enforcement, and anti-government ideology. So according to the FBI, the 4 individuals were allegedly planning coordinated bombing attacks on New Year's Eve using improvised explosive devices. So we did want to share that with you as we continue to follow the very latest. And we were also hearing from the LAPD police chief there, Jim McDonald, as he was also sharing the very latest in a breaking news story that we've been continuing. That is Rob Reiner's son, Nick Reiner, now arrested, charged with murder after his parents' killing. So we just learned that information there from the police chief. He is booked for murder, Rob Reiner's son, and a little bit more information as we are continuing to follow all of the latest developments. The son of Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner arrested, charged with murder, and is now behind bars. 32-year-old Nick Reiner is his name. He was arrested yesterday and then booked today. The police chief saying that he is charged with murder after Rob Reiner and his wife were found dead inside their Los Angeles home. Los Angeles City first responders first called to the couple's Brentwood home at around 3:30 p.m. local time Sunday for what was initially reported as a medical emergency. When Los Angeles fire paramedics arrived, that is where they found 78-year-old Rob Reiner and his 68-year-old wife, Michelle, pronounced dead at the scene. So we're just hearing from the police chief as he addressed this breaking news on this Monday, stating that Nick Reiner has been booked for murder in his parents' killing. So we did want to share that with you. A live look outside of the couple's home as we have been continuing to see the media. We've also been seeing folks arriving at these front gates, and we have been seeing some leaving mementos there at the front gates. So we're going to continue to follow all of these developments. We are expecting a separate update from police at some point in time, but we were just hearing from the police chief at another event, and I did want to share that with you. In the meantime, we are going to step away for a brief moment. We have a lot more.
All right, so yeah, crazy stuff going on here with the foiled terror plot. Like, my God. I don't know what the hell is going on there. And then obviously the Rob Reiner situation, which is just... It's horrible. Regardless of what you think of him. Doesn't matter. This is a horrible situation. Absolutely awful. Right before Christmas as well. Not good. Not good at all. And moving on to some more horrible stuff that happened over the past few days.
Australia reeling after at least 15 people were killed and dozens injured when two gunmen targeted a Hanukkah celebration right there on Bondi Beach in an anti-Semitic terror attack. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott live in London with more. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Dana, sorry. Okay. Yes, the people in Australia, in fact, all around the world, are still in shock from the attack on Sunday. Police now say they expect to bring criminal charges against a surviving gunman in a deadly shooting spree that left 15 dead, aged 10 to 87. Dozens were hospitalized. Several remain in critical condition. A father, 50 years old, and his son, 24, targeted hundreds of people, adults, kids, gathered at a park at Sydney's famous Bondi Beach to mark the first day of Hanukkah. Officials describe it as a terrible act of anti-Semitism, in fact, an act of terrorism against the Jewish community. In one vivid scene, a bystander can be seen sneaking up on one of the gunmen, then tackling him, wrestling the gun away from the man, pushing him down to the ground.
That guy is a fucking hero. An absolute legend. My God. The balls on that guy to tackle the armed gunman. What an absolute legend.
Up on one of the gunmen, then tackling him, wrestling the gun away from the man, pushing him down to the ground, pointing the gun at him as the suspect backs off, and then putting the gun down. He would soon be wounded himself.
Give that guy the key to the city. Fucking make him Prime Minister of Australia. My God. What a badass.
In comments later, President Trump called him a very brave man. Here is one eyewitness and victim's account.
I saw at least one gunman firing, looked like a shotgun, firing randomly in all directions. I saw children falling to the floor, so elderly I saw, invalids I saw. People just, it was an absolute bloodbath, blood gushing everywhere.
As people today mourn the losses, more is learned about the shooters. The father, who died after being shot by police, was an immigrant who lived in Australia on various visas. The son, who was injured, reportedly was investigated by police a few years ago for his association with members of a Sydney-based cell of the Islamic State, or ISIS terror group. He was not deemed a threat at the time. Dana, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, that's wild. Not deemed a threat at the time. I have to be very careful with what I say. That's for sure.
Albanese says he'll introduce new security measures to protect the Jewish population. Critics say he hasn't done enough, and he wants to tighten up already strict gun laws. The 50-year-old gunman had legal possession of 6 firearms. Now all are recovered. Back to you guys.
All right, Greg Palcott, thank you.
So now, in the wake of the attack in Australia, President Trump with a message of support to Jewish Americans, telling Fox News this yesterday: "We celebrate proudly, be proud of who you are," end quote. The president also saying this at a Christmas reception at the White House last night.
And I think today we can first say loudly, we celebrate Hanukkah, because that was such a horrible attack. That was a purely anti-Semitic attack.
All right, Paul Morrow, former NYPD inspector, Fox News contributor. And Paul, good morning to you. There's a ton to go over here. Let's start in Australia. I'm reading that the father was from Syria. I'm reading the father is Palestinian. I don't know which is true. I know the father went to Australia in 1998. The son was born there.
Right.
You heard Greg's reporting. 6 years ago, the son was investigated for links to ISIS, and then that went quiet. He had 6 firearms found at the scene yesterday. You've been watching it since.
All right, a couple of things occur to me. First of all, one of the things we have to recognize, Australia doesn't have a First Amendment, all right? And it sounds like a nuance, but it does matter. They don't have anywhere near the constitutional protections we have on speech. Where does that hit the ground? If you're doing intelligence work inside of Australia, you have a lot more freedom to do what you would like to do than you do here in the States. And having been in that position, having done 15 years of counterterrorism, I can tell you that your proscription, the thing that you're always bumping up against when it comes to speech in America, religious and political speech, you can only go so far. It's heavily, heavily lawyered, both at the federal and the state level. Where am I going with this is the following. He was on their radar screen. There are going to be inevitable questions. And I'm not saying the Australian intelligence agency...
Isn't that how it always is? He was on our radar. We were paying close attention to him. We were making sure he wasn't going to act out. He was on our radar. It always comes up. It's the number one thing that comes up right after an event like this happens. We're not going to act on it until something happens. It's the same thing every time. Every single time. Oh, we had him on a list. We knew he was a part of this, or he did this in the past. It's like, when is enough enough? You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of crazy.
He's dropped the ball because a lot of this stuff can be needle in a haystack. But if he was on their radar screen, and if there were subsequent things where they should have picked it up, Albanese and the authorities there are almost certainly going to face questions as to why, because they can go a lot further than we can here.
Could you talk about the bravery of the bystander that sees the father shooting and disarms him?
Yeah, you see the...
Yeah, I mean, we know how brave he is. You just watch the video and see it for yourself. I don't need a Fox analyst telling me that. Moving onward to even more terrible news. There was a shooting at the Brown University. I believe a few people were taken in that one as well.
Now, so let's start with Brown. We have, sadly, we have many to choose from. The footage is real. They really think that's a suspect. But the 24-year-old they had in custody that they found at the hotel by the airport, he is no longer a suspect.
Yeah, I watched the press conference last night, and if you notice, they were parsing their words very, very carefully, and they left a little bit of an aperture open for the idea that he may still be the suspect, right? So they were saying, yeah, he's still a person of interest and things like that, but we're going in a different direction. So what you have to do now, and this is tough to do in an investigation, they got to take a step back, and they got to wipe the slate clean. You can't go with your confirmation biases now because you have to realistically, you got to start over, and you got to start from the beginning and say, motive here. How do we winnow down the process? And remember, one of the things that we've been hearing all along here, which has been sort of received wisdom, that the solve was going to come from the fact that they put out a lot of technical resources, like to do geofencing, throw a fence, essentially, an electronic fence around the area, see what phones were moving, what were in that zone. And the problem is, if the perpetrator doesn't have a phone, then you're blind again, and you got to start there, because if he doesn't, then realistically, you got to go a different route.
Paul, you were talking about some of the security measures of that building.
Yeah.
It's apparent that this guy knew that when he was going into this building, because, I mean, this is just almost like the perfect scenario for a suspect to evade with no cameras, being able to get access to the building, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're raising the salient points here, because even when we had supposedly had a solve and we started to get some information about the potential perpetrator, the idea was that he had come all the way across country and had selected Brown. And a lot of us had questions as to why. Why did he come all the way in? We had the recent case with the 2 National Guardsmen in D.C., and people were comparing it to that. But D.C. is iconic. Right. You understand why somebody would go there. Why Brown University? And if it was chosen, which it would have to have been, how did he know he could get in? Why that particular classroom where everybody in that building happened to be? How did he know he wouldn't need a key card? How did he know all of these things, that they would even be there? So that was, to me, a big question that I was waiting to hear resolved, and it never got resolved. So that means, as I said earlier, you got to take a step back. You got to say, okay, who has a potential motive here? We know, for instance, the professor is also a professor of Judaic studies. Now, you got to, in light of everything that's gone on, you have 2 soldiers dead, actually 3 dead in Syria. You have everything that just happened in Australia. You had 5 Islamists rolled up on a Christmas market plot in Germany. We had a number of things pop off in the Netherlands. You got to say to yourself, is there a commonality? Is somebody putting out? The Israelis have put out some stuff relative to Iran. I'm not ready to buy that yet. But you do have to say there's a lot going on all at once. And so when you look at Brown, that has to be marbled into the equation.
Right. Yeah, it's scary because they're radicals. So they believe this is what their God wants them to do. So it's hard to fight that. Let's talk about what happened in the L.A. area yesterday. We get all of this breaking news over the weekend. Heavy hearts for all of us, talking about what happened at Brown. And
okay, so they're going to talk about Rob Reiner a little more there. But yeah, it's just like one thing after another now. Every day there is something. It is kicking off to levels we have never seen before. Okay, so we had Steven Crowder go on to Piers Morgan. No, wait, no, sorry. We had Nick Fuentes go on to Steven Crowder and then Piers Morgan. And now Steven Crowder is going on to Piers Morgan to talk about Nick Fuentes. That was very confusing. Just bear with me here. But Steven Crowder ends up confronting Piers based on the interview he did with Fuentes.
An eagle-eyed member of the Uncensored team noticed that one of the first eager superfans to comment on my interview with Nick Fuentes was Steven Crowder, the host of Louder with Crowder, who wrote on our YouTube channel, How to Not Conduct an Interview 101. And Mr. Crowder joins me now. Welcome to you, Mr. Crowder.
Thank you for having me, sir. Merry Christmas. Or do you guys say Happy Christmas? I've heard it both ways.
We do both. I'd be very happy to wish you a Happy Christmas and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Despite you impugning my qualities as an interviewer. You did expand on this. You said Piers Morgan is a liberal at heart, which I think is probably right. So he spent the whole interview trying to gotcha his way through identity politics on a guy who already rejects the premise. I did think that was an interesting commentary, actually. I would start by saying I wasn't trying to gotcha him because I'd already made it clear I was going to put to him, I'd already said this publicly, I was going to put to him all the more contentious things that he has said, which have gained notoriety. and challenge him properly about them, which I think I did. I don't categorize that as a gotcha. He got very exercised about the story involving his father. And I said on an earlier panel we did that actually, if I had my time again, I wouldn't have named his father, although it's easily discoverable on the internet, but I wouldn't have done that. I would still have told the anecdote because as I was trying to explain to Nick Fuentes, the story was put in the public domain by Nick Fuentes about his father in a way in which you could only construe from it that his father made decisions when Nick Fuentes was young, which appeared to be racist decisions. And I was curious whether he felt he was a product of that environment. Now, he went nuts about that, and he's perfectly entitled to. And he's come after me and my family. Fine, he's perfectly entitled to do all that. I don't care. But I was curious why you felt that I was playing gotcha with him and not just actually, I think, doing my job as a journalist and just challenging him about the more contentious things that he said.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think you challenged him on the most contentious things. And by the way, it's not an impugnment of your character. It's a different interviewing style, right? I think that trying to shame someone like Nick Fuentes for being racist, for being a misogynist, like that's a layup for him. He's already been accused of that, and I don't think it's very fruitful. I mean, I don't want to conflate gotcha with challenging. So I would say, by the way, yeah, if he's going after your family, Nick Fuentes, if you're watching, strongly condemn that from your audience if anything is happening out of line. But I also would say, when the guy makes a good point and says, hey, you know what, my dad's not here to defend himself, could we move on from that? Don't do it 6 more times. But I counted 6 times, and you're not able to get to where you actually have disagreements. See, when I sat down with Nick, and yeah, I played his clips back, people could argue that it was tedious, but I would play a 1.5-minute clip, you know, a 2-minute clip, because I wanted to show it in context. And I was able to actually lay out, we were actually able to contrast our policy, our prescription differences, where people know. And so I think if you go after, father being racist, I don't even know that you would construe his father's being racist because he doesn't like Applebee's. No one likes Applebe's. No one likes Olive Garden.
Hang on. That's not what he said. He literally told the story that his father didn't like that particular restaurant chain or others because they were known for black fare.
Sure.
Well, that's racist.
Black fare? What if people don't like black fare as far as food? What if people don't want to be somewhere where they're more likely to end up in a World Star hip hop video? This is where we get to the issue of you and him discussing per capita. Right? Let me ask you this. Like you're a Catholic. We were talking about this. You said you'd be happy to talk about it. What do you think is going to be fruitful in attacking a celibate Catholic for not getting laid?
I didn't attack him.
You're driving people into his arms.
I didn't attack him.
He said he needs to get laid.
I think he does.
That's a heresy.
I think he does. I think he's an incel.
So you advocate heresy.
I think he's, well, I perfectly understand if you're a devout Catholic, which I'm not. If you're a devout, I was brought up a Catholic and I was given spiritual guidance by Catholic nuns, and a lot of my family are very devout Catholics. I'm not particularly, but I still adhere to, broadly adhere to Catholicism, albeit there are parts of the teachings I don't agree with. So that's my position on it. But I can understand if he'd said to me, the reason I've never had sex.
Then why bring it up, Piers? Why is it relevant whether he's been laid or not? Because I said in my interview specifically, just so you know, I'll answer for everything I say. When I interviewed him, I said, I hate it when people use something that should be seen as a virtue as an attack. Out of all the views, if you view them as reprehensible, and I, by the way, strongly disagree with a lot of Nick's views, the least relevant is whether he's celibate as a devout Catholic. That's like a good thing, and so you actually give him the moral high ground. He says, hey,
had he said
my
to
dad
me,
out of it.
Yeah, but hang on, you're putting up a better defence, if I may suggest, than he did, because had he said to me, I'm a devout Catholic, and the reason I haven't had sex is because the Catholic Church forbids that and says you should be married before you have sex. Perfectly reasonable answer. That's not what he said. He never said that at all.
So you didn't do your research, because he said that literally dozens of times.
He may have said it elsewhere. He didn't say it to me. I only asked him about that stuff because there is a view that he is what they call an incel, and that he whips up that kind of mentality, and that's why he's such a misogynist about women and so on. It's an interesting thing to ask him. He seemed to me quite happy to answer it all. He was quite emphatic in his answers. Fine. I didn't see that as an attack. I was joking about getting laid because it seems to me he's a very angry guy.
Can I jump in for a second here?
Yeah.
Because this is where I think this is important, right? His audience will. People out there, by the way, some who are voluntarily celibate because they're devout Christians, but also if you look at the dating pool out there, I don't think it's misogyny to say, I wouldn't date one of those young women if they were growing on my ass. And they're actually out there living in a world that's been created. They will identify you as someone who's helped create that, right? Someone who says, I don't care if the UK no longer looks white. I don't care if we lose our cultural identity. Hey, it's great, women's rights. And they're looking at their prospects. And when you say, hey, you're celibate or whatever it is, you haven't gotten laid, you're an incel. Guess what? You give him the moral high ground. When you say, hey, what about your dad? And he asks you, and I will say, he asked pretty respectfully, don't do that. You go on 6 more times. What did you ask about Stalin?
Well, because I thought what he was doing.
You said little twerp.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
You said little twerp.
Stephen, I hear you. I hear you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, honestly, I'm not, because I've got a lot of respect for you. I think that he...
Well, thank you.
I think what he tried to do, I think he was taken aback when I revealed that anecdote about his father. And I think he didn't want to address what he actually said on air with that anecdote, because it's pretty damning when you hear it. And I think he decided very quickly, because he's a smart, quick operator, to turn it into me attacking him about his dad who wasn't there and how disgusting and blah, blah. And that's fine, but I kept trying to bring him back. I kept saying, look, it's not an attack on your father.
To his dad.
Well, I wasn't attacking his dad. I was saying, if you tell a story which looks to the world when they hear it, that you're saying your father was racist, can that have an influence on you as you grow up? That was the question I was making. I didn't want him getting off the hook of answering that question about his environment, having heard him in his own words put that story out there.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. In trying to keep him 6 times, and that's what I counted, on the hook for his dad maybe being a racist. Look, if your dad's in the Klan, it couldn't be relevant. It has nothing to do with the price of tea in China, right? What hook
well,
would
it is
matter
if
would
you
be
openly admit to being a racist,
hold on,
isn't
asking
it?
him about Stalin. And I say this because the last time I was on your show, remember we were talking about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would hope that you would be just as hard on Candace and people like Tucker for some of the things that they've said.
Sure.
I think it's fair to be even-handed across the board.
Yeah, I agree.
Stalin, I said I would like to ask him about that, right? Is he a fan? Is he actually an admirer? Or does he just mean to say he's fascinated? What did you ask? You asked him about his dad 6 times. You attacked him as and I don't mean attack him. You present him, but racist, misogynist, right? Stuff that he already knows. That's the playbook. You'll drive your fans into his own arms. What was your question on Stalin?
Well, I asked him.
There wasn't one.
Well, there was actually.
There wasn't one.
No, you're
No,
missing.
there wasn't.
No, there was. You just didn't hear it. So I actually brought on a British journalist called Danny Finkelstein, who spent 90 seconds in a video talking about what Stalin and Hitler had done to his family. I did it in the context of him saying Hitler's cool, but Stalin was addressed in that, and he was totally dismissive of a Jewish man talking about his family being annihilated by Stalin and Hitler.
Do you hear yourself? Do you think that you think that's going to be effective or fruitful?
Well, it
Bring
wasn't.
on a guy named Finkelstein. No, it wasn't. You didn't ask him. Let me read you what I asked him about Stalin. Okay, because I think a lot of people, you responded saying it was softball. Did you watch the whole interview that I conducted with Nick?
Well, before you read what you're about to read, let me play a little mashup of you interviewing Nick Fuentes, and you can respond to this. Hang on.
Okay, but did you watch the whole interview?
Yeah,
Nick Fuentes, do you hate all Jews, sir?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you consider yourself an anti-Semite, a noted anti-Semite?
No.
Okay. Clears that up. Do you believe that white people are superior to all other races on the planet?
No.
Okay. Do you want to eradicate all non-whites from the United States?
No.
Okay. Well, Barry Weiss will be very happy to hear that. No doubt she's watching. And then because this happens a lot, right? It's Tucker did this with you. Fed. Nick Fuentes, are you in fact a Fed?
No.
Okay.
I got to say, mate, that's one of the most forensic examinations of interviewing masterclass I think I've ever seen. I mean, the follow-ups were magnificent.
Nick?
Magnificent.
Piers, did you watch the whole interview?
No.
No, you didn't. Okay, so one of us came here quite a bit more prepared, which seems to be your approach with Nick. So let me read you my exact question on Stalin.
Piers is making himself look incredibly stupid right now. My God, he didn't even watch the entire interview. He's just cherry-picking moments in order to push his point across, and it's just falling flat. Look, Piers is good at what he does in terms of trying to rage bait and gain clips, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And look, he interviewed a few people on this stream, and he just got decimated. All the comments are just annihilating him. Crowder had to talk to Piers like a 4-year-old for him to understand. Yeah. Look, sometimes Piers does a good job. This time, he fell flat on his face.
Those were layups specifically because, again, I think you and I both agree, right? We want to have reasonable discussions. You don't want to radicalize people.
I agree.
Get rid of the bull crap on the outset so that we could actually get to real differences. And I think here's something that I really pursue when I interview someone: truth and understanding. I asked him about Stalin. Let me read you the exact question later on. It would help if you watched the whole interview. I said, my question to you would be, I know that you've said we want a Catholic theocracy or a Christian theocracy. I've heard the word dictatorship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would ask you, since the end point seems similar to where Stalin would want us to reach, swap atheism for Catholicism, would you be able to name, or is there any one thing that you think America concretely should copy about Stalin's rule or revolutionary methods to get there? And guess what? We were able to actually answer. We were able to actually discuss it. How many retractions on your show? 0. Quite a few on mine. How many times did we actually get into discussions regarding where we disagree? And let me tell you where I disagree with him. I'm to the right of him on some issues. I'm definitely to the right of him economically. He's a pretty big sort of centralized economy guy, but we did it in good faith. And I presented him with his own questions. We got that out of the way. If you don't watch the whole interview, yeah, you can take 15 seconds. Did you get to any, that was my question. And yours was, well, you never asked about Stalin. You said, do you still think Hitler is fucking cool?
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you? What'd you learn?
That he does.
And that's new? That he thinks they have nice outfits? They're Hugo Boss.
No, but okay, he didn't say that as his reason.
Did you learn about Stalin, Piers? Did you learn about...
I can't, dude. The awkward silence it's so loud. Holy shit.
Hugo Boss.
No, but okay, he didn't say that as his reason.
Did you learn about Stalin, Piers? Did you learn about why young men right now are disaffected, disenfranchised?
As I said to you, I played a clip from a guy who literally lost family members, close family members, to Stalin and to Hitler.
Sure.
And Nick Fuentes' response was to mock him and then to unleash his groypers on this guy who've been now mercilessly abusing and mocking him about the loss of his family members to Stalin and Hitler for the last 48 hours. Now, you might think that's acceptable, or that somehow I didn't push that hard enough.
This is what legacy media is done. You can't compete. Look, guys like Nick, guys like Andrew Wilson on your show, they've come. I mean that you were at CNN, HLN for a very long time, and you're still following the same format. And so there, accusing someone young of being racist is a win. But with people who've grown up being accused of racism, of misogyny their whole life, they don't give a shit. And so you should get to the point where you can actually understand. Here's the one thing I would say that would help. Listen. You weren't listening to the guy, so you're not even able to lay out where you disagree, and your own audience.
Well, I don't think you heard that. I don't think you could have heard the whole interview either. Then, I mean, look, I'm going to go and listen to yours in full.
Every last second, pillar to post.
Okay, but look, for 2 hours I talked to the guy. I came with an open mind. I wanted to know whether it was performative, whether he did these things, whether he said things as a joke, whether if he did and it blew up, he regretted any of them, or whether he really means this stuff. And I learned a lot more about Nick Fuentes in the 2 hours than I knew before. You probably knew it all already because you've interviewed him before. I haven't. It's the first time I've ever met him.
I've never interviewed him before. This is my first time I've ever spoken with him or interacted with him whatsoever. I did do my research, and I already knew what his stance was on Stalin. I already knew how he clarified it. I already knew his stance on racism. And here's what I would say, if I'm being as accurate as I can be, right, for the general populace. I think most people, if they listen to Nick Fuentes, his views on race and crime, they'd say, okay, someone like that has a case. Certainly any men under the age of 25. I think a lot of people would broad strokes categorize it as anti-Semitic. We were able to get into that. I was able to communicate that I thought Islamic immigration is a greater threat than global Jewry. And guess what? He disagreed, but we understood each other. You don't de-radicalize people by marginalizing everyone who actually makes good points, by spending 6 follow-up questions on a racist
you know what?
by accusing them of not getting
what?
laid and calling them twerps.
Stephen, here's what I'll concede. Like I did with the initial reaction that you did. I will concede I didn't get him, I mean, other than him saying, I believe now, actually, in a satirical way. In other words, I don't think he really meant it, but when he said he did think at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, he did it in a way that others, like Glenn Greenwald, have told me he didn't mean it. Whatever, it's up to him. It's down to him. I don't think I don't think I got anywhere with Nick Fuentes. I don't think I got anywhere to him changing his mind about anything. I certainly didn't get anywhere in stopping him unleashing his Groiper hounds on me or my family, whatever, I don't care. I've had far worse and it's fine. If you're in the media jungle long enough, you get these pile-ons occasionally, and it's just better just to ride them out with a smile on your face. It's whatever. But I didn't get anywhere with him. So in a way, I am listening to you because I'm curious how you do get anywhere with somebody like that when his whole shtick is really just on doubling, trebling, quadrupling down, and he says things which I genuinely do find really offensive. When he talks about women in the way that he does, it is really offensive.
Well, let me answer. Here's how you get somewhere, by not playing gotcha. So, for example, when you start off with, if you've done the research, you know it's facetious. Same thing that Jillian Michaels did. Do you think all women need to be raped? No, he was citing, by the way, study after study that you can replicate that 62% of women
he said
have
that to
some
me.
form of
He
a
said
rape
that to me.
fantasy. Yes, so sexually dominant. But when you start off with that, guess what? Young people go, okay, all right, same old, same old. You
I
could
didn't
have
start
asked
off
him,
with
hey,
that,
what
though.
are your views on women?
I started off with this thing that all women are annoying and they all get old and fat and ugly.
What part of that do you disagree with?
All of it.
You don't think that women get fatter and more unattractive? Men do too, by the way.
I think men
You and I
largely
are
do.
both getting fatter and uglier. And I
Okay.
think that a lot of women, particularly if you go on TikTok and you see generationally, I think they're annoying. And I think that is a symptom of a serious problem, which is deeply rooted feminism, which, by the way, is the same source problem for LGBTQAI. And the reason that you have biological men winning Olympic medals, right? You see that as a problem. You need to get to where you diverge or what the root of the problem is. And here's the thing, you're never going to get there if you just discount young people who are facing different problems than you. I understand. I don't think they're right on all of it, but I understand it because I was listening. I think you could have listened to him better. If your goal is the pursuit of truth, and actually, and I would imagine your goal if you think his views are abhorrent, by the way, and I think some of them are. So if your goal is to peel some of those people off, give him the floor to explain context so that you can contrast it. But it ended up getting back to gotcha.
Okay, but final question. Which of his views do you find abhorrent then?
Well, when he talks about, for example, I would say wrong. I would say wrong, the idea of global Jewry, and I told him that. The idea that massive third world immigration, particularly from Islamic countries, that largely rests at the feet of the Jews. I think it rests at the feet of these Islamic nations, of these third world nations that I would call crap holes, and that's considered a more offensive view. I think it's a problem, for example, when you ask him if he's a racist, he's going to answer yes. He's going to answer yes, but he actually answered, by the way, everyone's racist. And then he actually offered a qualifier. And through that, you're racist because you live in a largely white area. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. You can't just ignore the points and go back to a soundbite. That's how a guy.
The hell is that noise?
I like Nick Fuentes. That's how he thrives.
Bro, Piers, you got to figure out your show, man. You got people talking in the background. What the hell's going on?
And by the way, people in the comment section, your own comment section, I get that some of them are trolling. Go easy, guys, on Piers. It's Christmas.
I thought I had another video open. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I think you were trying to do a good job.
I don't
What
care
I'm telling you,
Listen,
I'm telling you, Piers, is that it's not the way to approach a different generation of people who come up in a blood sport debate like they did on Twitch. It's going to actually give them a win.
Yeah, I think I buy into the argument they couldn't give a shit, actually. And that's one of the more depressing aspects of it.
Easier to dismiss them.
But if I worried about their comments, I would turn the comments off, and they're wide open. So bring your worst, you little groipers. Stephen Crowder, Merry Christmas to you. Always good to have you on.
All right, there you have it. We're going to switch gears to some Canadian politics very briefly. And that's probably going to lead us into the end of the show with a Moose on the Loose video. There is a petition going around demanding that Michael Ma resign, the MP who just crossed. It is now at 37,000 plus signatures. It's probably out more now. This was put up yesterday morning. He won his seat as a conservative with 27,000 votes, and now what I can only assume is probably a lot more than that want him to step down. Is it going to happen? No. No, Michael Ma won't step down. I don't care how many people sign this petition, he's not going to step down. And if he does, I would be genuinely shocked. I'd be like, wow, the spineless guy who crossed the floor actually has a spine to step down? No. No, he's not going to do that. Doesn't matter how many people demand he resign. And we have tons of people, rightfully so, by the way, furious that this man crossed the floor. So we have a bunch of people outside of, I believe, his office or something like that, demanding he resign. And we have a Rebel News video here interviewing more people. A few actually, I believe, said that it's completely okay that he switched over, but obviously a majority of the people don't think that.
Conservative to liberal crossing the floor?
Yeah, it's great.
You think it's a good thing?
Oh, yeah.
The Red Liberal government sees itself as a player. It is picking winners and losers through that age-old enemy of human progress, central planning and interventionism.
He is, to me, he's a two-head snake.
Did you support him as a conservative?
Yes,
Yes. So do you feel like you're being represented by the switch?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay. Good evening. This is Scarlett Grace with Rebel News. We are here at the office of MP Michael Maw, who just made the switch from the Conservative Party to join the Liberals, bringing the Liberal Party to one seat shy of a majority government. In Michael Maw's statement announcing his switch to the Liberal Party, he said he decided to do so after, quote, listening carefully to the people of Markham-Unionville in recent weeks. He followed that up by saying, quote, Prime Minister Mark Carney is offering the steady, practical approach we need to deliver on the priorities I hear every day while door knocking in Markham-Unionville. That includes making life more affordable, growing a strong Canadian economy. Just last week, Michael Maw stood in Parliament and berated Mark Carney, saying that the Liberals are responsible for the affordability and food bank crisis.
Mr. Speaker, we are in a shameful situation in this country where over 2 million Canadians are visiting food bank every month. At the end of every month, paychecks aren't going far enough. Why is that? The Liberals will want to deflect the blames this solely on the trade deficit. However, there is a simple economic fact. When you create more units of currency and map them to an economy that isn't meaningful, producing more units of goods and services, we get inflation.
So what changed? And what do the constituents of Markham-Unionville really think about Michael Maw's floor crossing? Rebel News is here to find out.
I would want his answer because I voted for him. I voted for Conservative, and now it seems like he can just cross the floor to Liberal without answering to his constituents.
So you voted for Michael Maw with the Conservative Party.
Yes.
How do you feel about the fact that he can just switch to another party, the one that you didn't vote him in with?
It's totally disgusting. The reason why I voted for Conservative is because I agree with Conservative value, not the Liberals' value.
And what values is it that are important to you that you thought Michael Maw was aligned with?
Like gender things, like education, family, like the food crisis that the Liberal is bringing to this country, bringing in unvetted refugees, all these problems.
Yeah, so
I don't agree with.
These are things that are important to you and why you voted for him.
Yes.
And just last week, he was in Parliament berating Mark Carney about the affordability crisis in our country and about...
He called the Liberals team feudalism. And then he joined them. It's actually crazy. He's a giant hypocrite who clearly switched to the other side for some sort of monetary gain, whether to keep his job, whatever the case is, I don't know. But for him to be at the Conservative Christmas party the night before, smiling, dancing, taking pictures with Polyev, to then switch to the Liberals 24 hours later, there's just something fishy about that. There's something completely wrong about that. And look, I've said it before and I'll say it again, a by-election needs to be triggered. It doesn't matter from which party, if an MP crossed from Conservative to Liberal, Liberal to Conservative, NDP to Green, I don't care. I don't care. There needs to be some sort of accountability held there. People did not vote for this MP to then just ditch the platform they voted for to go for a completely different one. It's just absurd.
About the food bank crisis.
The Liberals operate at a systemic system intervention and then propose branded one-shot measures to create the image of doing good for Canadians, by Canadians. If they stop their environmentalist overreach, Canadians could do good by themselves.
And all of a sudden, he has made that switch to support.
Overnight. He is, to me, he's a two-head snake.
What do you think was his motivation behind making the switch?
Money, power. That reminds me of a book that I read earlier, Money, Sex, and Power. I'm not sure if the sex part is in it.
But ultimately, we don't know. And we have no reason to know why he did this. But you feel that he's not listening to the people who voted for him.
He never listened. Yeah.
And as politicians, it's their job to listen to the people who voted for them, just like this lady here. So thank you so much for your opinion. It's really valued. Thank you. We went to the Unionville GO station to see what people in the area thought about Michael Maugh's switch. Do you have an opinion on that? MPs changing parties when they've already been elected?
It's happened before, hasn't it?
It certainly has. Do you think that it's a very good thing in our democracy that you can change parties in the middle of your work?
It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But
No, it doesn't.
It's happened before.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with humans, right? So.
Conservative to liberal crossing the floor?
Yeah, it's great.
You think it's a good thing?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that?
Because this is a battleground riding. But also, I prefer if you didn't upload this because I don't want to be on your news platform.
That's okay. We can blur your identity. Why don't you think it's good?
I don't know, I guess I believe the act probably is they have no choice to do the reselections, right, I guess?
What do you think about him being elected as a conservative and being allowed to change to liberal?
It should not be happening,
Should not be allowed. Yeah. Did you support him as a conservative?
Yes, I'm.
Yes. So do you feel like you're being represented by the switch?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I live here, so I actually have no idea.
Okay.
But I am liberal. I'm not conservative.
Okay.
Whatsoever.
Okay.
So I support the libs.
Okay. Thank you for your opinion. Ian, on the member of parliament of this area crossing the floor from the Conservatives to Liberals, do you have an opinion? What do you think about an MP changing parties after they've already been elected?
I mean, perhaps there are values of their current party they don't agree with that's causing them to change over. So I think if they want to, they should.
I think it's good for the Liberals, but not for the Conservatives.
Yeah. Do you think is it good for you?
Wow, thanks for the base analysis, pal. No, you don't say. You don't say. It's just weird that you join the conservative team during the election, you run on this platform to get yourself elected, and then you just stab everybody in the back. It's just very strange. It's very, very strange behavior. It is bought and paid for behavior. At least that's what it feels like in my opinion.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston says he doesn't understand why he and two of his cabinet ministers wouldn't be allowed on a First Nation.
We're talking separation. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Saskatchewan now, the ones organizing talks about separation. This isn't just Alberta anymore. We got a bunch of stories here. Let's jump into this. We got Carney getting slammed on all fronts. We've got Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is renewing his attack on Ottawa's equalization formula, saying Western half provinces like his, Alberta and BC, get nothing in 2026, while Quebec alone receives $13.9 billion. The freeloading must end. I understand equalization for smaller provinces that really need money, but Quebec doesn't need it. If they want to develop their natural resources, they should. Then they can get rich off of that. If they don't want to, then they shouldn't receive Alberta's dirty oil money or Saskatchewan's dirty uranium or potash or whatever money. The system is clearly broken. With that said, the people of Saskatchewan are now thinking about separating. They've got their own independence movement here, holding meetings across the province. So there's the speaker here, which we'll see in a second here. He's holding events here with 200 people per group, going all across Saskatchewan, Meadow Lake, Assiniboine, Tompkins, Prince Albert, Raymore, Leader, Swift Current, etc. This is a real thing now. There's a movement of separation coming out of Saskatchewan.
In a hall near Saskatoon, over 200 people have come to hear from the Saskatchewan Prosperity Project, a group promoting Saskatchewan's independence from Canada. The group's president, Brad Williams, focuses on Western alienation and what he says are the economic and political benefits of separation.
Freedom, hope, prosperity for our children.
for their futures, because right now in Canada, it's a sinking ship. And if we don't take our little lifeboat and throw it out and get off all we can, we're going down with the ship. And we don't have to. We are giving away so much money to Ottawa. We're so controlled. We're losing our freedoms.
The Saskatchewan Prosperity Project is following in the footsteps of the Alberta Prosperity Project. Over the last 5 weeks, Williams has held public education sessions in close to 10 communities around the province, including Swift Current, Prince Albert, and Meadow Lake. Key talking points include equalization payments, canola tariffs, and immigration. People we spoke to at this meeting say they want some kind of change.
Recently, through COVID and through a lot of mistrust that I have in the current government, I'm interested in looking at ways that we can become more resourceful, more independent.
I was really happy to see the big crowd out tonight. It was excellent to see a lot of enthusiasm. I talked to a lot of people after as they were leaving, and they're ready to get involved. They're ready to get into their community. They're ready to start forming chapters in their small towns.
Western alienation has a long history on the prairies, but political analysts say there's never been an organized separatism movement with any real momentum.
No province can leave
This political scientist says provinces aren't allowed to separate from Canada without a constitutional amendment, and plebiscites in Saskatchewan aren't legally binding.
There's no mechanism in Canada for a province to just unilaterally say they're out of the country. And that's a Supreme Court decision that happened after the 1995 referendum, when we were thinking about this in the context of Quebec.
The Prosperity Project is encouraging people to start local chapters and plans to hold meetings in more Saskatchewan towns and cities in the months to come. Lisa Rism, CBC News, Saskatoon.
So this is a real movement now. And you notice at the beginning there, he said they're taking away our freedoms. I mean, this is happening every day. Remember this story here? DND proposes mobilizing citizen army of 300,000. This was up from like 26,000. It's more than 10 times. What do you think this is for? Carney wants to keep us nice and safe? I don't think so. I think this is for two reasons. One, Carney is already going to profit off of the conflict over in Ukraine. Carney's not the only one that's going to profit here too. I bet a bunch of those European leaders, that's why they don't want that conflict to end. Right now, there's this back and forth whether it's going to end, whether it's not. Europe was basically getting ready to go in there and drag all the countries in there to go into this conflict. So a bigger army would allow Carney to essentially push Canada into this, and thus there'd be more money to be made by the companies that rebuild Ukraine or provide military equipment. But also, remember the Freedom Convoy? Mark Carney himself here was one of the ones recommending that bank accounts be seized and shut down. He thought Canadians should be controlled. Is it far-fetched to think that this guy wants a big military, even if it's reserves, so he can control the population of Canada? Because they know full well that if a bunch of Canadians just mobilize, there's nothing they can do. There's not enough police and there's not enough military to handle Canada. I mean, the Freedom Convoy was a couple thousand people there. What if 10 or 20,000 people showed up? They couldn't do anything. They would be outmatched. There's no way to control that. That seems quite likely why he wants to mobilize. He wants to have 300,000 reservists, because then he would literally have an army to push back against angry Canadians. And as he keeps stripping Canada's freedoms away, he would need a bigger army to control the angry population. So with that, going back to Saskatchewan here, they're putting forward this idea of separation. And obviously they would probably join with Alberta on this. We can see this quote here. I'd like to see First Nations people have a lot more say in what happens in the resource development on their land, he said. For example, they could be the corporation that actually extracts it instead of having to farm it out to some other company from somewhere else in the world. So right away, this Williams guy here trying to set it up to work with First Nations so there's no more pushback, at least not from within. It'd only be from Ottawa. Just think of what happens in British Columbia if you had a guy like Aaron Gunn or someone else, a strong leader, come in for the BC Conservatives and win. Then you could potentially have 3 provinces saying, you know what, let's team up together and create our own country and get out of this madness, this nonsense that is Canada. Because right now, one BC has just completely imploded. I'm going to wait to do a video on that because it just keeps changing minute by minute. But Dallas Brody was thrown out of the party and all sorts of infighting and all sorts of stuff going on there. So we'll wait on that. But it seems one BC has imploded completely. But a good, strong conservative leader in British Columbia could revive this province, put the 3 together. Mark Carney's going to be in trouble. So the only way to control that is with a big army. Speaking of frustrated constituents, here we got a shot inside of Michael Maw's office.
Michael Ma, I'm absolutely right.
Michael Ma is a CCP puppet. That's what it looks like to me. And people are starting to wake up in other countries. In this case, it's in Chile. Here's their recent election. The pro-Trump candidate here just won 59.8% versus 40.2%. And what did that look like? Well, this is it here. Thousands of Chileans took to the streets here to celebrate. Important to watch Chile because likely there will be some sort of relationship with Donald Trump. You could see more trade there. How does that affect Canada? The joy rips right off the screen. I mean, people are happy. Just imagine if we got a conservative government in Canada here, Pierre Poilievre, taking us out of the dark ages. We've got a lot of updates here on First Nation land claims. So we've got this one, David Eby, saying that he's going to use taxpayer money financially back properties in the Cowichan claimed area.
In a year-end interview with CBC News, Premier David Eby says the province is trying to ease the stress for homeowners and businesses in the area of Richmond impacted by the Cowichan land claim through a plan to offer loan and mortgage guarantees through the Ministry of Finance.
One of the things that we're working on right now is a guarantee for the Richmond property owners that are in the specific area that the court awarded and declared that the titles were invalid, so that they're able to access borrowing, refinance their mortgages, or mortgage a property if someone's buying new, or access financing as a business. That guarantee will enable them to continue life a little more close to normal.
So does that mean?
Let me get this straight. This guy's going to bankrupt taxpayers in British Columbia because he doesn't have the kahunas to step forward and get rid of that stupid UNDRIP laws that they voted in a couple years ago. Seriously, what is this? Taxpayers should not be paying for this junk.
That the BC government would almost be the backstop for their mortgages?
That's right. That we would support a financial institution that had anxiety about otherwise writing a mortgage to be able to have the confidence to write that mortgage for somebody.
More than one.
I said this before and I say it again. If Canadian taxpayers have to bail out every single property, Canada will go broke. Just looking at Kamloops, I believe there's 2 bands trying to claim the entire city, which is worth $43 billion. We don't have that money. So what's going to happen? You can't just pay these people out. They're just going to take it, or are they going to start taking property taxes? Or are they going to kick people off their land? Are they going to, what is it? Just going to turn into a big battle? Like, what's going to happen here? We know businesses aren't sticking around for this nonsense because they don't have anything to do with this. It's not stable. Without fee simple title, our democracy is not stable, at least in British Columbia, and this is going to fester, and it's already moving across the country. We saw it with Chief White Duck trying to steal $15 billion of land out in the east there.
150 private properties, including homes and industrial sites, are impacted by the BC Supreme Court decision that awarded the Cowichan Nation Aboriginal title to more than 300 hectares of land in South Richmond. The decision has led to confusion and uncertainty over what it means for the validity of private property ownership. Eby says his team has been going door to door in the area, asking homeowners if they've been unable to secure mortgage renewals or property loans because of the court decision. While there are no concrete examples of that yet, many express fears they...
Yes, there are. I've already reported 3 of them. Oh, who are these people? Go do some work. First off, there's that guy at that event who said he couldn't get a mortgage. There's that big $140 million development that fell through. They already had financing. It fell through after that. There's that big warehouse company, $500-something million deal that just fell through. And were we going to back all of these? $1 billion here, $1 billion there? We're going to go broke. David Eby needs to have some courage and repeal DRIPA immediately. This is such a weak response for him saying we're going to back all these properties. If you need a mortgage, don't worry, we'll back it. Taxpayers will pay for everything. This is ridiculous.
Many express fears they won't be able to sell their home in the future.
That's just it. The property values of these houses have dropped. $1 million here, $1 million there. I mean, a lot of these properties are worth $5, $6, $7 million because they're huge farms, and each acre of land out here is worth millions. But who wants to touch this? I mean, some people, maybe if it's a $7 million property, maybe they buy it at $1 million, $2 million maybe. But a lot of people are not going to pay anything more than at least a 50% haircut on the price. Is the BC government going to fork up taxpayer money and say, here, we'll pay the other half that you lost because of the Cowichan ruling? This is ridiculous. It's just another failed decision by David Eby. It's weak leadership. Now, related on the same topic, we got this one.
I am so happy I don't live in BC. What a nightmare. David Eby just sits by while his province does whatever it wants.
From New Brunswick, appeals court rules Indigenous group can't seek Aboriginal title over private land. So there's some common sense over in New Brunswick here. And it says here that a judicial declaration of Aboriginal title would confer those ownership rights, and I'm unable to see how those rights can coexist with the very same rights vested in fee simple owners. In my view, remedial justice favors compensation from the Crown over to disposition of private fee simple owners in all cases. So basically, there's some common sense pushing back saying that both Aboriginal title and fee simple title cannot exist at the same time here. So hopefully judges across the country here, whether it's pushing back against Chief White Duck out near Ottawa or in BC, can use this ruling to push back against these and have some common sense and say, you know what, no more. Get rid of DRIPA and stop having Canadians' land being stolen. As stated earlier here, I mean, this whole thing with Cowichan is a complete mess, and we have entire city of Kamloops assessed value at least $43 billion. There's not enough money to pay for this. And if you add in all of British Columbia, well, it's just not going to happen. Do Canadians just have to move on and give up everything they've ever worked for? Like, that's not going to happen. People will lose their absolute minds and it'll turn into something much worse here. And there's not enough money to pay this out. So what we need is strong leadership from the BC Premier right now and repeal DRIPA. With that said, we've got Nova Scotia Premier response to ban on Indigenous land. That's right. Tim Houston got banned from First Nation land.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston says he doesn't understand why he and two of his cabinet ministers wouldn't be allowed on a First Nation. One chief and council told them they're not welcome after a crackdown on what the province calls illegal cannabis sales. CTV's Jesse Thomas reports.
Premier Tim Houston is reinforcing his government's crackdown on what they call the illegal or shadow cannabis market, saying the surge of illegal cannabis dispensaries popping up is getting out of control, and calls it a major public safety and health risk.
We're focused on Nova Scotians, protecting Nova Scotians, upholding the law, making sure that it's like one set of laws for every Nova Scotian.
But the crackdown has sparked controversy. One Mi'kmaq community has banned Houston and two high-ranking cabinet ministers from entering their land. Houston said he's puzzled by the move.
To have somebody banned from a community with an or else statement is kind of bizarre for me in Canada. But I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on keeping Nova Scotia.
This is such a clown show, so I don't know much about this story, but one would suspect if they're banning that and they don't like it, that maybe they have some of that activity going on their band there. I don't know, but it's just funny that we've got premiers being banned from First Nation reserves now. Moving ahead, we've got quite the scene here on CBC. Believe it or not, they finally told the truth on here.
I guess I wanted to examine whether the Prime Minister, whether the government, Althea, understands that it's a minority government, and whether we see any signs that they are trying to find collaboration either at committees or in the House or in any way to get their legislation through.
I don't know that the government believes in collaboration, and maybe I'm too generous by saying government, the Prime Minister. Steve McKinnon may get along well with Andrew Scheer, this is the Liberal government's House leader, but he does not get along with the Bloc Québécois, which is the only other dance partner in committees. So that, to me, was always a questionable appointment. They decided not to give the NDP official party status, which means that they only have two partners to dance with, one of whom is trying to be obstructionist most of the time, the Conservatives, in committee. And so they only have the Bloc to dance with. And they're not doing a good job. You know, when Justin Trudeau resigned in January, he talked about Parliament being paralyzed.
And it was, That fall, the Liberals had passed 12 bills. Mark Carney has passed this fall, as we're recording this, one bill. One bill. That Building Canada Act that he was talking about in the clip, that was passed in June. So, you know, they have a really hard time passing their bills, some of which, frankly, their own members think is a good thing because they don't like the bills. But they have a problem.
This is funny. You see Rosemary's face during the entire time. She looks very worried. You watch the full thing here. She keeps clapping back and keeps trying to prop up Carney. I'm surprised, though. I mean, Althea here essentially saying the quiet part out loud. She's dropping some truth bombs. And we also have Andrew Coyne, surprisingly, doing the same here.
They have a problem making allies and realizing that if they want to get stuff done through Parliament, they need to work with other people. Okay, and we should say,
Yeah, they don't care about working with other parties because all Mark Carney wants to do is steal a majority. He's got his people helping him, Xi Jinping helping him campaign for the election. Is Xi Jinping helping him now get a majority? It's very undemocratic. If he gets a majority by just swaying people over promising things, then there's going to be some serious revolt in this country. So jumping ahead, we've got this buffoon, Andrew Coyne, dropping some truth bombs himself.
There's an authoritarian streak more broadly running through this government, as there was through the government before it, as there was through the government before that, and before that. It's a common theme, liberal or conservative, is abusing Parliament, running roughshod over individual rights. In this case, we've got a government that has been passing omnibus bill after omnibus bill, depriving refugees of the right to an independent hearing, opening the way to warrantless access to subscriber information. So this is of a piece with that. And the long and the short of it is more power for the powers that be and less power for the average citizen.
It's also important to note, allowing refugees to come into Canada and just be unvetted, and there's no tracking them down, come into the country and run away. They could be criminals. We don't know.
I don't know if you know this, but what is the understanding of why the government feels they need this? Like, is there some justification for it that would be worth
so
considering?
it's a little bit more limited than I think how Andrew's framing it. But first of all, okay. So I think it's important to say this was not in the copy of the budget that we were given in the lockup.
In the print one, yeah.
It's buried in Annex 5, which is not included in the print copy of the budget.
Oh, not in the print copy, okay.
And it doesn't actually say, it just says that they're amending the Red Tape Reduction Act. So when you look at what's actually in the bill, what they seem to be trying to do is to exempt a company, a person, an unregistered company, an entity, as Andrew called it, that from laws that are in place to allow for the testing of a product or a service or a regulation, which is a law.
Red tape. They want to get rid of the red tape. Is that the idea?
Well,
They want to get rid of the red tape. Is that the idea? She's desperately trying to cover for Carney here. I'm amazed they're actually calling it as it is. This was a draconian attempt to sneak in this provision to allow Carney's ministers to just work with companies and not have to disclose anything. They can bypass environmental laws, bypass everything, bypass conflicts of interest.
Well, so to allow for something that would make the economy, and this is in the law, help the economy or innovation, or like these are very broad parameters.
Sure.
And when I asked the governments, I went back and forth with them for a week to find out, like, what is it that you're, this seems a little weird. Why do you need this? And like, how, like, what, can you give me an example of how it would be used? And they basically told me that, well, it's to sandbox. So if there's a test, like for example, with drones, there was a law in the book that said that the pilot has to be in the plane. So they had to create like a separate regulation so that they could test drones.
Okay.
So they already had the toolkit and to be able to do this. So why do they need these wider, grander, more elaborate powers?
Right.
I never got a response from the department. I never got a response from the ministry.
Yeah.
And the answers that have been given in the House of Commons when other MPs have since raised it do not address the issue. So we don't know. And I think that's why Andrew and I are really worried about the slippery slope.
Quickly, and then maybe Chantal is less worried. I don't know.
Maybe Chantal's less worried. Rosemary trying to do cleanup here because she doesn't like what she hears. This is some seriously sinister stuff that Carney's trying to slip in there. They want to build.
Rosemary she's terrible. She's absolutely horrendous at what she does. I guess in terms of manipulating and that, she's good, but when it comes to like actually being a reporter or a journalist, you know, doing her actual job, she's terrible. Absolutely garbage. And she will prop up and defend the Liberals no matter what. No matter what. I have never seen her call out a Liberal minister or anything of that sort. Even David Cochrane, he's just as bad. They are both terrible people.
Be able to bypass Mark Carney's conflicts of interest. That's what those are really brought in for.
The intent may or may not be about spurring innovation, et cetera, but the language of the bill is any minister, any law for which that minister is responsible, they can exempt it. It's not about, the language of the bill doesn't say just for the purposes of sandboxing and experimentation, et cetera.
Well, it does say for innovation and whatnot.
Okay,
it isn't.
Chantal's take.
Yes,
Is it something that we...
Is it something? How do we clean this one up? I wonder if Andrew Coyne and Althea here are going to get invited back on the CBC. So this is being posted on CBC The National. I don't know how many people watch this. At least this information is getting passed on to the clueless Liberals who watch this stuff day in, day out.
All right, and that is going to do it for today's live stream. No question period, no parliament. It's shut down. They're on a 6 to 7 week vacation. I personally don't think they should be on a vacation period. I just don't think they should. They had 3 months off at the beginning of the year to screw around and do whatever they please, and now they get another month and a half off. And they got 2 months off in the summer. It just, nothing adds up with this government. They claim we're in a crisis, but they go on vacation. There's no logic in that. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. Thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your day or night, depending on where you are from. And I will be live tomorrow, roughly the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take it easy, everyone.